We're gonna go down and take the 2 train down to Chambers Street, down to go check out my high school.
So Metro Yankees.
Ah, Yankees all the way. And yeah, I mean, this was my daily routine. Right here, our school, and then right over there was where the World Trade Center and everything like that was. In the morning of September 11th, I walked across this bridge just like it was any other normal day. The 8th floor room had a window facing the World Trade Center. I look over, kind of ask what's happening. Everyone kind of points to this, this huge gaping hole in the World Trade Center.
64 degrees at 8 o'clock. It's Tuesday, September 11th.
That morning must have been the most beautiful blue sky I've ever seen in New York.
Okay, we're seeing it looks like some kind of sick confetti parade. There is debris flying.
There are fire crews just screaming into this area from every conceivable direction.
Oh, that's the World Trade Center. What just happened? Oh, the World Twin Towers, the buildings that they all outside the building. It was just a huge explosion.
Every day, New Yorkers wake up with that target on their back that when is it going to happen? People are still gun shy.
9/11, set us straight. It woke us up to a reality that we can be attacked in our own homeland.
Times are hard. People get either you find solace in kind of some kind of spirituality, or you get disillusioned, and you kind of have that moment where you're questioning.
Something that terrorists use for bad, God used for good, where many people who did not know Jesus Christ came to know Christ because of what happened during 9/11.
People needed to hear more about Christ because there was darkness all around in terms of people just feeling lost and feeling empty, at least in that area, and then it just kind of rippled out to the rest of the country.
When the radical Islamic terrorists crashed planes into the World Trade Center towers in Lower Manhattan on September 11th, 2001, 2,753 people from 77 nations lost their lives. As our nation was shocked, and as New York City and Washington, D.C. in particular, mourned these tragic losses, I believe that Southern Baptists and evangelicals began to awaken to the reality that New York City represents a spiritual and ideological battleground of global and cosmic proportions. In the past 10 years, in the day succeeding September 11th, 2001, evangelicals and Southern Baptists have been busy planting new churches throughout metropolitan New York. Southern Baptists have participated in some 50 new churches throughout this area in these days.
Now, in the last 10 years, since 9/11, there's been a great spiritual responsiveness in the city. Unfortunately, though, that same event, 9/11, created this strong American sentiment and a strong religious sentiment that has somewhat put us at odds with Muslims and some of the other religions around the world.
After it happens and stuff, I used to get a lot of hate from a lot of people, As a Muslim, it's not what we do. It's not how we do. That's not us.
I'll never forget being a few years after 9/11, sitting down with some of these Muslims, and they were shocked by the fact when they learned that Christians fast too. Some of the directors of Urban Impact were fasting with these Muslims during Ramadan, and they couldn't believe that. They said Christians don't fast, and when they were told, well, Christians aren't everything you've been taught, well, they asked them, they said, well, why are you fasting? And their response, because we're praying for you.
In a lot of ways, New York has become increasingly skeptical towards the idea of religion. I heard a couple years ago, and I believe it's still true today, that atheism is now one of the fastest growing religions in New York City.
It's a pretty sensitive issue, though, as you think about planting in New York City, because New Yorkers view 9/11 in a wide variety of ways. And the idea of church planters coming into the city to save the city in Jesus' name, that's not well received in the city.
People question God. Some people ran to God. Other people questioned Him and ran away from Him. And so post 9/11, 10 years later, our job as the church is to, in a sense, defend the faith or defend the hope that's in us. We got to show people that Christ is real, that He is good, and that His purposes, His ultimate purposes, are for good.
In the midst of all the bad news, since 9/11, really, it's just gotten worse. Look at our world. But we have the good news. the truth, to tell them about the Prince of Peace.
Right after the aftershock of 9/11, there was a surge in spirituality. I think at that time the prayer was for genuine revival. I'm not sure if we can say at this point, 10 years later, that revival has sprung forth in New York City, but I think the time is still ripe for revival in Metro New York City. We need people to come and serve Metro New York City.
We are challenging also another conventions to invest in New York.
If the Lord is calling you to come to our city, I know that we had tremendous opportunity to reach so many people.
So I encourage you and invite you to consider coming to New York to be a part of this.
And we were going to trust those of you who are watching this video to come and impact those surrounding communities.
And so the city's a challenging place because of the skepticism, not just toward Jesus, but toward the church in general. And even on the heels of 9/11, there was a real surge in church planting where a lot of churches didn't take because guys did not count the cost. And so if you're considering coming to the city to plant, we want you to count the cost. We want you to know it's probably the hardest thing that you'll ever do. But if He's called you, the city is crying for you to come.
What would you do to help us make that happen? What will you do to see us make that happen? Will you respond to God's call to come to New York, to plant a new church, to partner in seeing a new church planted, that the nations might hear, that all might hear, that all might respond, that there might be a church planted to reach every man, woman, and child who call the greater New York City metro area their home? Thank you.
My name is Freeman Field, and I'm working here at the MNYBA on 72nd Street in New York City, and just loving life here.